Beloved, as you listen now, I ask you to pause the rushing river of your thoughts and feel with me a truth so immense that the very air around you becomes sacred. From the moment of your first breath until this instant, there has been one changeless, luminous, infinite dwelling at the innermost center of your being. Not visiting from afar, not a passing fragrance on the wind, but the very core of your life, the source from which every heartbeat, every thought, every longing arises. And yet, in the noise of the world, in the restless search for meaning beyond ourselves, how many lifetimes have passed without our fully turning inward to greet Him? This is the silent tragedy of human forgetfulness, to carry within us the divine beloved and live as though we are alone. I tell you now, with the urgency of one who has walked through this same fog and seen the sun beyond it, God has not abandoned you. He has not stepped away until you become worthy of His company. The palace of your heart has never been without its rightful king. It is only that the doors have been closed so long, the windows shuttered against the light, that you have forgotten His voice in the halls. The dust of countless days without conscious remembrance has covered the golden floors. The silence has grown so deep that you wonder if the king was ever there at all. But He is. Always He is. I want you to feel the holy discontent of this moment, not the discontent that breeds bitterness, but the kind that shakes the soul awake from centuries of sleep. Imagine, if you will, a brilliant jewel of perfect clarity buried beneath the soil. Rain falls upon it, winds sweep across it, seasons pass over it, but none of these things touch its radiance. They only conceal it from sight. Now picture yourself, standing with shovel in hand, suddenly realizing, this is mine, this has always been mine. Would you delay in digging? Would you turn away to tend to lesser treasures while the priceless gem waits just below the surface? No, the urgency would rise within you like a fire. And that is what I hope stirs in you now, a fire to seek, to uncover, to brush away the layers of neglect and see again the brilliance that is your own soul, shining with God's presence. This awakening cannot wait for a better time, for the right season or the perfect outer conditions. The king is in the palace. The jewel is beneath your feet. The only question is whether you will act in this very breath to meet Him. So let us set aside the notion that God is far away, hidden in the vastness of the cosmos, accessible only to saints of old or to lives free of flaws. Before you search the galaxies for His face, you must first find Him where He has always been, in the secret chamber of your own soul. It is there that the prayer I will give you will unfold its full power. And it is there, beloved, that we will go together. Come closer now, in the stillness of your listening heart, and let me speak to you of the most intimate truth you can ever know, that you are not merely a child of earth, bound to the turning of seasons and the tides of circumstance, but a living spark of the infinite Spirit, eternal and unblemished, carrying within you the very essence of the Creator. This truth is not a poet's fancy nor a theologian's abstraction. It is the bedrock reality upon which every saint has built the temple of their realization. Before you knew the name of the sun, before you drew your first breath, before even this present incarnation began, the light of God was your life, the love of God was your substance, and the wisdom of God was your consciousness. You are not separate from that source. You are its reflection, its child, its expression, waiting only to be remembered. Picture, if you will, a still mountain lake at dawn, so perfectly calm that the rising sun is mirrored upon its surface, without a single ripple to distort its image. In such stillness, the sun above and its reflection below are one, indistinguishable. This is the soul in its true state, a flawless mirror, reflecting the undimmed radiance of the Spirit. But when the winds of restless thought stir the waters, the reflection is broken, scattered into fragments of light. We then believe the sun has left us, when in truth it was only our own surface that was disturbed. The task, then, is not to call the sun back from some distant horizon, but to still the waters once again, so that the reflection may be seen in its perfection. Or imagine a flute, carved with care, fashioned for the breath of a master musician. Alone it is beautiful, but its beauty is incomplete until the breath fills it and music pours forth. Your life, too, is an instrument exquisitely made for the divine musician to breathe through, to sing through, to act through. Yet when we live without awareness of Him, the flute lies silent, and we mistake that silence for emptiness. To awaken the divine within you is to lift that flute to the lips of Spirit and allow the eternal song to flow. This is why the saints have told us for centuries that awakening is not the adding of something new, but the uncovering of what has always been. The diamond does not become brilliant when it is polished. It was brilliant all along, the polishing only removes what obscured it. Likewise, the divine within you is not dormant in essence, only in your awareness. And the prayer I will share with you in due time is the cloth that wipes away the dust, the breath that stills the lake, the music that fills the flute. Feel the nearness of this truth. You are not striving toward God as a climber toward a faraway peak. You are awakening to the God who is already the ground beneath your feet, the air in your lungs, the life of your life. There is no pilgrimage more important than the journey inward to meet Him, where He abides in the quiet chamber of your soul, where He has waited with infinite patience for you to knock. And when you do, beloved, He will open, and the joy of that meeting will make you wonder why you ever thought He was far away. So, before we speak the words of the prayer itself, anchor this truth within you. You are already the temple in which God dwells, already the mirror in which He longs to see His face, already the song He longs to sing. All that is left is to open the door, and that we shall do together. Yet if this truth is so close, if the divine within you is as near as your own breath and as constant as your own heartbeat, why is it that so often you do not feel it? Why does the light of your own soul seem dimmed? Why does the presence of God appear veiled, as though hidden behind some impenetrable curtain? Here we must speak of Maya, that subtle, ancient power of delusion, which is not a monster stalking you from outside, but a soft and persistent fog rising from within, clouding the senses, confusing the mind, and whispering to you that you are small, separate, and bound. Maya is the art of the veil, concealing the jewel of the spirit behind the shimmering distractions of the world and the restless chatter of the ego. Picture a sky of perfect blue with the sun blazing high above, pouring its radiance freely over all creation. Now imagine clouds drifting across that sky, some light and fleeting, others heavy and dense. They do not destroy the sun, nor do they diminish its power. They merely block it from your sight. Such are the restless thoughts, the endless desires, and the subtle fears that gather in the mind. Each one is a wisp of cloud, and as they accumulate, they can seem to cover the entire sky. In those moments, you may believe the sun is gone, that its warmth has been withdrawn from you. But in truth, it still shines with undiminished brilliance, waiting only for the winds of awareness to clear the way. Or think of a mirror, finely made and capable of reflecting light with perfect clarity. Over time, a thin film of dust begins to settle upon it. Then perhaps a mist of condensation forms, blurring its surface. If left unattended, it can become so clouded that it no longer seems to reflect anything at all. The mirror is still the same. The capacity to reflect light is still there, but it is hidden beneath what is gathered on its surface. This is the state of the soul under the influence of Maya. The dust is the accumulation of unexamined habits, attachments, and resentments. The fog is the restless breath of the ego that seeks always to affirm its separateness. And here is the subtlety. Maya does not always appear as obvious sin or gross error. Often it comes in the form of busyness, distraction, the constant pull of the senses toward 1,000 outer objects. It can even cloak itself in noble causes, in good works done without the remembrance of God, so that you are drawn ever outward while the inner chamber remains closed. The danger of Maya is not only in what it shows you, but in what it keeps you from seeing the radiant truth of your own divine nature. Beloved, I do not say these things to condemn you, but to awaken you. For once you recognize the veil, you are no longer fully captive to it. You begin to see its threads, to feel its texture, to realize that it is not the wall you once thought it to be, but something that can be lifted, even set aside entirely. And the lifting begins with remembrance, the conscious turning inward to the presence of God that has been there all along. Even a momentary glimpse beyond the veil can change the whole of your life. For when the light rushes in, it leaves its fragrance behind, a sweetness that calls you back again and again. We are approaching that moment together, the unveiling. Soon, I will place in your hands a prayer, so simple you could carry it in your heart without effort, yet so potent that it can pierce through the veil in an instant when spoken with true longing. And when that prayer is joined with stillness and devotion, the clouds will part, the mirror will shine, and the God within you will no longer be a hidden truth, but a living presence. Now, beloved, we arrive at the sacred threshold where I may place into your keeping the single prayer that, when spoken from the core of your being, becomes not just words, but a living current connecting you instantly with the divine presence already dwelling within. It is simple, yet it carries the distilled essence of countless invocations, the longing of saints, the surrender of devotees, and the joy of those who have touched God and returned to tell of it. Hear it now. Beloved Spirit, awaken thyself within me. Live through my thoughts. Love through my heart. Shine through my soul. Let us linger on these words, for each phrase is a doorway, and each doorway opens into an infinite room in the mansion of Spirit. Beloved Spirit, with these first two words, you acknowledge that God is not a cold abstraction nor a distant ruler, but the most intimate friend, the dearest companion of your soul. In calling him beloved, you remove every barrier of formality, every shadow of fear, and you speak as a child speaks to the parent whose love has never wavered. Awaken thyself within me. Here lies the profound paradox of the spiritual path. God is never asleep. It is we who have closed our eyes. Yet when we speak these words, we are not asking him to change his state, but to quicken our awareness of his ever-living presence, to stir the embers of our remembrance into a blazing fire. Live through my thoughts. This is the offering of the mind, the seat of ceaseless motion. You invite the divine to be the origin of every idea, the pattern behind every intention, so that no thought arises in you that is not already aligned with his wisdom. Love through my heart. This is the surrender of feeling, the wellspring of all that moves us toward others. You ask God to let his love be the river that flows through you, washing away all prejudice, all selfish desire, leaving only the pure current of compassion. Shine through my soul. This is the deepest surrender of all. For the soul is already light, but you ask that its radiance be so unclouded that others may see God in your eyes, hear him in your voice, feel him in your silent presence. To speak this prayer is like striking a match in a great darkness. At first, the flame is small, fragile, swaying with the breath. But it casts light nonetheless, revealing shapes you could not see before. And if you guard it, if you shield it from the winds of doubt and distraction, it will grow, it will ignite a torch, and that torch will light other torches until the darkness no longer holds any dominion over your heart. Or imagine an ancient locked door in the deepest part of your being. You have stood before it many times, sensing something beyond, but lacking the key. This prayer is that key. You place it in the lock, turn it with devotion, and the door swings open on silent hinges, revealing a light so familiar you know, without question, that you have come home. Hold this prayer gently in your heart, not as a charm to be used mechanically, but as a sacred friend to whom you speak with sincerity each time you turn inward. It is not the repetition alone that opens the way, but the union of the words with your longing, your surrender, and your stillness. And remember, beloved, this prayer does not bring God into you. It brings you into the awareness of God, who has been there all along, patiently awaiting your awakening. Now that you have received it, we will next explore the hidden law that gives it such power, the divine science of vibration, by which a single, rightly spoken prayer can move the soul into harmony with the infinite. For when you understand this, you will know not only what to say, but why it works, and you will never again speak to God as one who doubts his nearness. To understand why this single prayer holds such transforming power, we must enter the sacred science of vibration, the eternal law that underlies every movement of creation and every communion between the soul and its source. All things, from the farthest star to the subtlest thought, are vibrations of the one infinite spirit, differentiated only by their frequency, their purity, and their alignment with the divine will. The ancients knew this. The rishis of India heard the Om reverberating through the ether. The mystics of every faith spoke of the word by which all things were made. Even the scientists of our age tell us that the atom dances in ceaseless motion. When we pray, we are not merely arranging words in pleasing order, we are shaping currents of vibration, sending them forth like ripples on a still lake, which, if pure and rightly tuned, will meet and merge with the great ocean of God's own vibration. Imagine two tuning forks, fashioned to the same pitch. Strike one, and the other begins to hum in sympathy, though untouched by human hand. This is resonance, and it is the secret by which the soul awakens to the divine. Your heart is one tuning fork, God's presence is the other. When you speak the prayer with deep feeling, you set your own nature vibrating at the frequency of Spirit's love and wisdom. The divine, hearing the familiar tone of his own being in your call, responds instantly, not because he was distant and needed to be summoned, but because the resonance clears the static that kept you from hearing his ever-present song. Or see two lamps, separated by distance, yet connected to the same current. One lamp may be dark if the switch is off, though the current waits patiently in the wires. Turn the switch, and the lamp is instantly filled with light, not because the power was created in that moment, but because the connection was consciously made. Your soul is such a lamp, and the prayer is the switch. The current of God's presence flows unceasingly. With each heartfelt repetition, you open the channel a little wider, until the light within you burns without flicker or pause. This is why mere repetition without devotion yields so little. Words spoken without inward awareness are like striking a tuning fork that is warped, or turning a switch that leads to no circuit. The form is there, but the power is absent. But when the words are charged with the longing of your whole heart, with the still focus of your mind, and with the upward lift of your soul toward the spiritual eye, then the vibration is pure, the resonance is perfect, and the connection is made. In that moment, you do not merely pray to God, you pray with God, your voice harmonizing with his eternal voice. Think of the prayer as a seed. In itself, the seed contains the full pattern of the tree, the shape of the leaves, the strength of the trunk, the sweetness of the fruit. But for it to fulfill its destiny, it must be placed in the right soil, watered, and given light. The soil is your stillness, the water is your devotion, the light is your focused attention on the divine. Place the seed of the prayer in such a prepared place, and its vibration will grow roots in your consciousness, sending shoots of realization upward until your whole being becomes the living tree of God awareness. When you grasp this law, you understand why even a single prayer can awaken the divine within. Not because the words have magic apart from you, but because they are the perfect shape for the current of God to flow through. And when you align your mind and heart with them, you become the living instrument of their power. This is why we will next speak of the sacred art of prayer in the way I have taught it, so that when you speak these words, you will not only be heard, you will be transformed. Now, beloved, let me guide you into the sacred method by which this prayer must be offered if it is to awaken the divine within you in the fullest measure. For prayer is not merely a matter of speaking, it is a posture of the soul, a harmonizing of body, mind, and spirit, so that every fiber of your being becomes an open channel for God's presence to flow. The great ones have always prayed in this way, with stillness in the body, concentration in the mind, devotion in the heart, and upliftment in the soul's gaze. First, you must prepare the temple in which this meeting will take place, and that temple is your own body. Sit upright, as though the very axis of heaven were running through your spine, tall, unwavering, yet relaxed, the shoulders released from their burdens, the chest open to receive. The ancient yogis knew that the straight spine is the altar upon which spirit descends, the living pillar of light through which the currents of consciousness move unhindered. In this posture, you silently declare, I am ready, I am receptive, I am present. Next, let the breath become slow and calm, not by force, but by gentle invitation. Feel it enter through the nostrils as a cool, pure stream, descending into the heart, and leaving again as a warm release of all tension and thought. As the breath stills, so does the mind, for the two are bound together like shadow and light. This calm breath is the first act of prayer, for it clears the cluttered altar of your awareness, making space for the beloved to come and dwell. Now, bring your inner gaze, that subtle focus behind the physical eyes, gently upward to the point between the eyebrows, the spiritual eye. This is the doorway to Christ consciousness, the seat of divine vision, the star through which the soul slips beyond limitation into the boundless presence of God. Do not strain. Lift the gaze as you would lift your eyes to behold the face of someone you love. In this upliftment, the mind naturally turns away from the restless pull of the senses and begins to drink from the higher currents flowing in the spine toward spirit. With the body as a still temple, the breath as a quiet offering, and the gaze fixed upon the inner light, you are now ready to speak the prayer, but not with the lips. The most potent prayers are whispered in the language of the soul, inaudible to the ears of the world, yet thunderous in the halls of heaven. Let the words arise silently within, each one accompanied by deep feeling. Beloved Spirit, awaken thyself within me. Live through my thoughts, love through my heart, shine through my soul. Do not rush. Allow each phrase to settle, to echo in the inner chamber, as though you were placing a precious jewel into the hands of the Infinite and watching him receive it with a smile. As you speak inwardly, imagine the words themselves as shafts of light rising from the heart to the spiritual eye, each one infused with your longing and surrender. Feel the prayer expanding beyond language, becoming pure vibration, a hum that resonates through every cell. The mind becomes still, not because you force it, but because the prayer fills it so completely there is no room for wandering thought. This is the way of prayer I give to you, not a mere repetition of sounds, but an act of complete offering where posture, breath, gaze, thought, and feeling are all gathered and lifted together to God. When you pray in this way, even for a few breaths, the divine within you stirs, like the first rays of dawn touching the petals of a closed flower, coaxing it to open. And as you continue, day by day, the flower of your soul will unfold entirely, revealing its golden center, which is nothing less than God Himself shining from within. Now that you know how to pray, let us enter into the practice itself, so that you may taste the sweetness of awakening, not in theory, but in living experience. Let us now step together into the quiet sanctum of practice, where the prayer is no longer a thought about God, but a living communion with Him. Close your eyes, beloved, not as one shutting out the world in fear, but as one turning toward the inner sunrise, knowing that what you seek lies within. Feel the weight of your body gently supported by the earth beneath you, the steady rhythm of your breath like the slow tide upon a silent shore. All is still, all is ready. We begin with the breath, for the breath is the golden thread that ties the body to the soul. Inhale softly through the nose, drawing the cool current of life into the heart, feeling it wash through you as a river cleanses its banks. Hold it for a brief sacred pause, as if cradling a treasure you wish to cherish before releasing it. Then exhale gently, letting go of every thought, every worry, every shadow that lingers. With each breath, you are polishing the mirror of the heart, so that it may reflect the face of the divine. Now lift your inner gaze to the spiritual eye, that point between the eyebrows where, in deep stillness, the soul perceives the doorway to infinity. Imagine a soft, radiant light there, perhaps a deep blue circle with a golden halo, and at its center, a brilliant white star. This is not a fantasy, but a glimpse of your own higher reality, a symbol of the Christ consciousness within you. As you gaze inwardly, feel your entire being leaning toward that light, as a flower turns toward the sun. With this posture, with this breath, with this gaze, let the prayer rise from the depths of your heart. Beloved Spirit, awaken thyself within me. Live through my thoughts, love through my heart, shine through my soul. Speak it silently, yet with such fullness of devotion that each word is like a bell rung in the cathedral of your being, the sound rolling outward in waves of light. Do not hurry. Let the meaning of each phrase expand until it fills you. When you say, awaken thyself within me, feel as though a sleeping giant of light is stirring in your chest. When you say, live through my thoughts, imagine the divine shaping each idea into a vessel for truth. When you say, love through my heart, feel the river of compassion overflowing its banks, reaching all beings without exception. And when you say, shine through my soul, see yourself as a lamp through which God's radiance streams, touching the darkness of the world with unquenchable light. Repeat the prayer 3 times in this way, allowing the silence after each repetition to deepen. In that silence, listen not with the ears of the body, but with the listening of the soul. You may sense a subtle warmth in the heart, a tingling at the point between the eyebrows, or a still joy spreading through you. Do not cling to these sensations, but let them be the fragrance of the divine presence moving within you. As you rest here, the edges of your individuality may begin to soften. You may feel less like a separate being speaking to God, and more like a wave merging back into the ocean from which it came. This is the true aim of the prayer, not to keep you forever calling across a distance, but to dissolve the distance until the caller and the one called are the same. Stay here for a few breaths more, anchored in the awareness that the divine you sought has been here all along. Awaken now by your devotion and your stillness. When you are ready to return, let the breath deepen slightly. Let the awareness of the body return, but keep a part of your gaze inward, a part of your heart still turned toward that inner light. Know that you can return to this place in an instant, for it is not a place at all, but your own true home. And as we move forward, I will show you how to carry this living prayer into every moment of your day, so that the awakening you have felt now will grow into an unbroken awareness of the divine within you. Beloved, the prayer we have spoken together is not meant to live only in the quiet chambers of meditation, as precious as those moments are. Its true power unfolds when it becomes the very breath of your life, a steady undercurrent flowing beneath every thought, word, and action. Just as a lamp burns steadily in a humble cottage through the long hours of the night, casting a gentle light that makes the darkness harmless, so too must this prayer remain alive within you, illuminating the path through every season of your day. To live the prayer is to weave it into the fabric of your waking and your resting, your solitude and your service, until there is no part of your existence that does not carry its vibration. In the morning, as the first light of dawn filters into your room and the world lies still on the cusp of awakening, sit quietly before you touch the day with your hands or your thoughts. Lift your gaze to the spiritual eye and silently speak. Beloved Spirit, awaken thyself within me. Live through my thoughts, love through my heart, shine through my soul. Feel those words as the key turning in the lock of your consciousness, opening the door to the day ahead. Let them set the tone so that every meeting, every task, every challenge is approached from a place of divine remembrance rather than restless reaction. In this way, the prayer becomes your compass, pointing you unfailingly toward the true north of God awareness. During the day, when life's currents grow swift and the noise of the outer world begins to press in upon you, pause, even if only for the space of one breath. In that pause, return to the prayer. It need not be a long ceremony. Even a single inward repetition can steady the mind and redirect your energies. When irritation stirs, let the phrase, "love through my heart," soften you. When confusion clouds your judgment, let "live through my thoughts" clear the fog. When weariness tempts you to retreat from life's demands, let "shine through my soul" remind you that the light you bear is not your own, but God's inexhaustible radiance moving through you. And when the evening comes, before you surrender yourself to the quiet tides of sleep, close the day as you began it with the prayer. Sit for a few moments in gratitude, reviewing the hours not with judgment, but with the clear vision that comes from offering them into God's hands. Speak the prayer once more, not to begin a new task, but to seal the day in light, as a letter is sealed with a signet ring. In doing this, you carry its vibration into the dream realms, where the soul continues its journey in subtler planes. Over time, as you practice in this way, you will find that the prayer begins to rise unbidden. In moments of beauty, it will well up from within like a song you have always known. In moments of trial, it will come as a shield, warding off the blows of fear and despair. In the most ordinary of moments, walking down a street, washing a cup, listening to the wind in the trees, you will feel it whispering in the background, a quiet reminder that the divine is here, living, loving, and shining through you. This is how the prayer becomes more than an act, it becomes your state of being. You will no longer need to remember to speak it, for it will be speaking itself in you, as naturally as your heart beats and your lungs draw breath. And in that state, beloved, you will know what it is to walk in constant companionship with God, to live not as a seeker apart from the beloved, but as one in whom the beloved is fully awake. In the next moment of our journey together, I will show you the beautiful fruits that blossom when the prayer is lived in this way, and how they will transform not only your own life, but the lives of all who cross your path. When the prayer becomes the pulse of your life, beloved, it will begin to bear fruits so luminous and undeniable that you will know beyond any shadow of doubt that the divine within you is not merely stirring but fully awakening. These fruits are not trophies to be displayed, nor are they achievements to be claimed. They are the natural blossoming of a tree whose roots have found the waters of eternal life. Just as a river flows freely once the dam is removed, so too will the qualities of God pour through you when the obstructions of forgetfulness and ego have been swept away by the constant vibration of your communion. First among these fruits is a deep and unshakable peace. It is not the fragile quiet that depends on everything around you being still, but a peace that abides even in the midst of noise, chaos, or change. It is the calm center of the storm, the still axis around which all movement turns. You will walk through the same world as before, but you will no longer be at the mercy of its tempests. The waves may rise, but they cannot reach the depth where your soul now dwells. This peace is God's signature within you, the surest sign that you have entered His sanctuary and locked the door behind you. Alongside this peace will grow a love without condition or limit. It will not be confined to those who are kind to you, nor will it wither when faced with misunderstanding or rejection. It will be like a hidden spring in a dry land, flowing constantly, asking nothing in return. You will look into the eyes of strangers and feel as though you have known them for ages, because you will recognize in them the same divine presence that has awakened in you. Even those who have hurt you will no longer seem like enemies. They will appear as fellow travelers who have forgotten their own light, and you will silently wish for them the same awakening you have tasted. Another fruit is a subtle yet profound clarity, an intuitive guidance that speaks without words, leading you in the smallest and greatest decisions. It is like having a compass that always points toward the will of God, regardless of how the winds of circumstance may shift. You may not always understand in advance why a certain path is opened or closed to you, but you will trust the movement of that inner guidance, because again and again it will prove to lead you toward harmony and away from harm. And then there is joy, not the fleeting pleasure that rises and falls with outer events, but a joy that seems to have no cause at all, arising from the sheer fact of existence in God. It may come quietly, like the warmth of sunlight through a window, or it may burst forth like laughter that cannot be contained. In this joy, you will feel as though you are both the wave and the ocean, both the song and the silence, both the seeker and the one sought. These are the fruits of living the prayer, and they will not only transform your inner life, but also radiate outward, touching all who come near you. Without speaking of God, you will carry Him to others. Without trying to teach, you will awaken in them the memory of their own divine origin. This is the silent ministry of a soul in which the beloved is awake, a ministry that needs no stage, no recognition, only the steady shining of the light that now fills you. And so, beloved, having seen the beauty of these fruits, we come to the final step, to make of this prayer not only a personal devotion, but a vow before God, a conscious, heartfelt commitment to live as His instrument, His reflection, His living temple. In this vow, the awakening becomes not a fleeting moment, but the permanent orientation of your soul toward the light. Let us take that step together now. Beloved, the moment has come for you to seal all that we have shared, all that you have felt stirring within you, into a sacred vow, a covenant not written on paper, but inscribed in the living substance of your soul. This vow is not a burden, nor is it a chain. It is the casting of an anchor into the safe harbor of God's presence, so that no matter how the tides of life may rise or the winds may howl, you will remain moored in the certainty of His nearness. It is a declaration to yourself and to the infinite. I will live as one who remembers. I will speak, think, and act as one in whom the beloved has awakened. Before you speak it, pause. Feel the gravity of this step not as a weight to be feared, but as the solemn joy of placing your hand in the hand of the eternal. Imagine sealing a letter with a royal crest, knowing that what is written within cannot be altered or denied. This vow is the sealing of your intention, the confirmation of your desire to let the divine live through every facet of your being. Now, close your eyes and return to the posture we have learned together. Spine tall and unwavering, breath calm, gaze lifted gently to the spiritual eye. In this stillness, silently speak the prayer once more. Beloved Spirit, awaken thyself within me. Live through my thoughts, love through my heart, shine through my soul. With each phrase, feel that you are offering a part of yourself into God's, keeping your thoughts into His wisdom, your feelings into His love, your very soul into His light. Let there be no corner of your being held back. Rest in the silence after the prayer. In that silence, let the vow form not in hurried words, but as a clear knowing that from this moment on, you will not live as one who is separate from the divine within. Whisper inwardly, this is my vow, this is my life, this is my joy to be thine, forever and without condition. See this vow rising from your heart like a white dove, ascending into the limitless sky of spirit, where it is received and blessed by the one to whom it is given. Feel the blessing descending upon you now, like warm sunlight spreading over your face, like a gentle hand resting upon your crown. Know that heaven has heard you, that your vow has been accepted, and that you are no longer simply seeking, you are living in the answered prayer. Let this awareness settle into you, like seeds falling into fertile soil, certain to grow in their season. And as we end this time together, let us not truly part, for in the quiet where your heart beats and your breath flows, I will always be speaking to you, and you will always be speaking to God. You have the prayer, you have the method, you have the vow. Now, beloved, walk in the light you have awakened, and let the world see, without you ever needing to tell them, that the divine within you is alive. Beloved soul, as you sit here listening, I invite you to enter a moment of deep stillness, for what I am about to share has long been hidden beneath layers of misunderstanding and centuries of distortion. When I first came to the West, I saw seekers yearning for freedom, desiring to rise above limitation, searching for a power that could shape destiny and unlock divine abundance. And yet, I also saw how this sacred truth of manifestation, preserved for thousands of years in the quiet sanctuaries of yogic masters, had been silenced, diluted, and transformed into something the great saints of India would hardly recognize. You have been told to chase desires, to command the universe with restless thoughts, to build castles of sand with the frail tools of ego. But this is not manifestation. This is bondage dressed as freedom. True manifestation, as I was taught by the immortal masters, is not about bending the world to the will of a fleeting mind. It is about remembering that you are already one with the cosmic intelligence that sustains all worlds. It is about dissolving the little self until only the great self of spirit remains to act, to create, and to pour blessings into your life, as naturally as the sun gives light to all beings without demand or effort. This sacred teaching was not meant to be hidden, beloved one, but history has a way of burying light beneath fear and misunderstanding. In the early centuries of spiritual thought in the West, those who spoke too openly of divine magnetism, of the power of the soul to shape reality through union with spirit, were silenced. Fearful minds could not understand that the human being is not meant to crawl as a beggar upon the earth, pleading for scraps of happiness, but to walk as a radiant child of God, co-creating with the infinite, drawing to themselves not material trinkets, but the luminous gifts of wisdom, peace, healing, and inner joy. These truths were not fully extinguished. They flickered in the writings of mystics. They glimmered in whispered prayers, but only when East and West would meet could the full teaching once again shine like a rising sun. When I brought the teachings of Kriya Yoga to these shores, I came not to add one more philosophy to the pile of worldly promises. I came to remind you of what you already are, a divine magnet, capable of attracting everything needed for your soul's journey, not through restless desire but through alignment with the will of the infinite. To manifest in truth is not to command God but to harmonize with God's eternal law, becoming like a polished mirror reflecting divine perfection into every aspect of life. This is why the Masters said that one illumined being can change the destiny of thousands without speaking a word. Their very consciousness radiates such a powerful vibration that blessings flow to all who enter their presence. This is not superstition, it is the highest science of the soul. And so I say to you now, manifestation is not about struggling to pull riches, fame, or fleeting pleasures into your grasp. It is about lifting your consciousness until you live in the thought of spirit alone. In that exalted state, the needs of your earthly life are fulfilled effortlessly, for the universe itself rushes to support the divine purpose you now embody. Just as the flower turns naturally toward the sun and is nourished without knowing how, so too does the soul that turns fully to God draw into its life all that is truly needed, while all that would harm or hinder quietly fades away. This is the teaching that has been hidden, not because it is complex or forbidden by divine law, but because the noisy mind of man has for centuries preferred the shadow over the light, illusion over truth. Sit with me now in this stillness and feel the weight of these words, not as ideas to ponder, but as vibrations awakening something ancient and eternal within you. Beneath every restless thought, beneath every fear of lack or longing for more, there is a silent knowing you are not separate from the source of life. The power to manifest beauty, abundance, health, and joy does not belong to an outside force. It flows already within you, waiting only for you to quiet the storm of ego and become a channel for Spirit's limitless intelligence. And when you do, beloved, miracles will unfold not as acts of struggle, but as natural expressions of divine harmony in your life. Beloved, let us travel now in spirit to the sacred groves and mountain caves of ancient India, where long before the noise of modern thinking, before the restless chase for worldly success, saints and sages sat in silent communion with the infinite. They did not seek to manifest wealth or power as the world defines it. They did not cry out to bend creation to their will. Instead, they dissolved the small self until only spirit remained, and from that state of perfect attunement, the universe itself responded. Rivers would alter their flow to protect them. Wild beasts would bow in peace at their feet. Abundance of food, shelter, and every necessity of life would appear with divine precision. This was not magic nor superstition. It was the law of manifestation as it was truly meant to be lived, becoming one with the divine will so completely that your very presence magnetizes the highest good without struggle or demand. The rishis of the Vedas, the seers of the Upanishads, and the masters of yoga understood this cosmic law intimately. They taught that prana, the life force of God, flows ceaselessly through the astral spine of every being, and that by stilling the breath, focusing the mind at the spiritual eye, and raising consciousness beyond the restless ego, the soul becomes a radiant channel for that power. In that state, whatever is truly needed for the soul's progress manifests as effortlessly as light radiates from the sun. These teachings were preserved through sacred lineages of guru and disciple, whispered in holy forests and ancient temples, passed from illuminated soul to seeking heart, not as a method to enslave the world to human desire, but as a science of liberating man from bondage altogether. As centuries passed, this wisdom journeyed across lands and cultures. Yet when it reached minds unprepared for its depth, it was often misunderstood. In lands far to the west, pieces of this truth were heard but not fully embraced. Teachers began to speak of attracting riches, of bending destiny with mental power alone, forgetting that without divine attunement, such practices lead only to entrapment in new forms of suffering. The true source of manifestation, the infinite intelligence of spirit, was obscured, replaced by philosophies that promise fulfillment while quietly feeding the hunger of the ego. And so, the radiant sun of divine manifestation was hidden behind clouds of materialistic thinking, waiting for the day when the full light could shine once more upon sincere hearts. This, beloved, is why the masters of India guarded these truths so carefully. They knew that the law of manifestation is not a tool for fleeting desires, but a divine instrument to awaken the soul to its eternal nature. When misused, it can entangle one further in Maya's dream. When understood and practiced rightly, it draws the soul closer to union with the infinite, providing only what elevates consciousness and discarding all that binds. The yogis never sought to attract in the sense of personal gain. They sought only to attune, to merge with spirit, to become so empty of self that God alone remained. And in that divine emptiness, every need was fulfilled without a word being spoken. So it was in the Himalayas, in the silent hermitages, where masters lived sustained not by human striving, but by divine law. Food, shelter, and companionship appeared in perfect timing, as if the universe itself bent to serve their soul's mission. This was not because they demanded it, but because they became one with the magnetic field of spirit, where abundance flows freely and effortlessly. This is the origin of manifestation, not a technique, not a chant for riches, but a state of divine consciousness that aligns you with the cosmic current of all good. Let us pause here in stillness and feel this truth reverberate within. Close your eyes for a moment, beloved, and imagine yourself seated beside an ancient sage in a quiet Himalayan cave. The snow-capped peaks rise around you. The sound of a distant river hums like a divine mantra, and in that silence, you sense a magnetic power not outside of you, not hidden in some secret formula, but flowing through your own breath, your own heartbeat, your very soul. This is the living science of manifestation, as taught by the Master Sa, truth that cannot be lost, only forgotten, and now remembered again in the light of Spirit's eternal presence. Beloved one, as the winds of time carried fragments of this sacred science westward, They passed through the minds and hearts of those who had not yet tasted the stillness of divine union. The pure teaching that had once been a living flame of spiritual awakening was refracted into countless shards, each reflecting only a glimmer of its true light. In the great cities of the West, amidst the rising noise of industry and commerce, the language of manifestation began to shift. No longer was it a path to dissolve the ego in God's will, it became a method for feeding the ego's insatiable hunger. People began to speak of attracting wealth, manipulating circumstance, and bending reality to personal desires, forgetting entirely that desire itself is the root of bondage. This distortion was not born of malice but of misunderstanding. The Western mind, steeped in material progress, saw in these teachings a way to gain advantage over life, to grasp more, to secure comfort and power. The profound truth that manifestation is the flowering of divine alignment, that it is spirit acting through a purified soul, was lost beneath waves of self-will. Books and lectures promised quick formulas to command the universe, to think and grow rich, as though the infinite were a servant to mortal whims. But true abundance, as the masters knew, cannot be forced by restless thought. It emerges naturally when the soul becomes a magnet of divine vibration. When I arrived in the West, I saw both the yearning and the suffering this misunderstanding had caused. Many sought fulfillment in piles of gold and fleeting pleasures, only to find themselves empty, anxious, and further from the peace they desired. They were told to affirm their desires louder, to visualize more vividly, to believe more forcefully, yet all this striving only deepened their entanglement in Maya, the cosmic delusion that happiness can be found outside the self. I came to tell them, you cannot manifest divine abundance with the same mind that clings to limitation. You must first become free. Manifestation is not a trick of thought. Beloved, it is a transformation of consciousness. Without spiritual awakening, attempts to manifest are like trying to light the sun with a candle. The universe responds not to human demands but to divine harmony. When your heart beats in rhythm with spirit, when your thoughts flow with truth and selflessness, you become a channel for cosmic power. Then, without grasping, without strain, what is truly yours begins to flow toward you effortlessly. Opportunities arise, obstacles melt, resources gather around your mission as rivers converge into the ocean, not because you demanded them, but because God's will moves through you unhindered. This is why Yogananda, when asked how to manifest wealth or success, always began with meditation, devotion, and self-purification. He taught that the first work is not on the outer world but on the inner being. Still the breath, calm the mind, uplift the vibration of your consciousness until it resonates with the highest truth. From that elevated state, your very presence becomes a magnet, drawing only what serves your soul's divine purpose. Anything else, no matter how glittering it may seem, falls away like dry leaves in the wind. Beloved, do you see now why this teaching was feared, why it was hidden or misunderstood for so long? A soul who understands and lives this truth cannot be controlled by worldly systems. They do not need to beg for power or security. They walk as children of the infinite, free, radiant, and self-sustaining in spirit's joy. To awaken such freedom is to awaken divine power within humanity itself, a power that no government, no institution, no false doctrine can contain. Let us pause here and silently affirm together, I am not a beggar of the world. I am a child of God. Divine abundance flows through me as I align with Spirit's will. Beloved, imagine now standing in the serene presence of Yogananda himself, his eyes radiating the calm certainty of one who has walked hand in hand with the infinite. When disciples approached him, asking how they might attract wealth, success, or healing into their lives, he would not hand them a list of affirmations to repeat mindlessly, nor would he encourage them to clamor after possessions, as though happiness could be bought with gold. Instead, he would speak softly yet with divine power. Become a divine magnet, and all that you need will be drawn to you. What did he mean by a divine magnet? Just as a physical magnet draws iron not by pushing or grasping but by the silent, invisible force of its magnetic field, so too does the awakened soul draw opportunities, abundance, and even miracles through the unseen power of its spiritual vibration. Yogananda explained that this magnetism is not built through restless mental effort or desperate craving. Rather, it arises naturally, when the consciousness is purified of fear, doubt, and selfish desire, and lifted into attunement with God's limitless energy. He often demonstrated this truth through his own life. In the early days of building his spiritual work in the West, there were times when resources seemed scarce, when human reasoning would have said that growth was impossible. Yet Yogananda did not fret or struggle. He entered deep meditation, attuned his will with God's will, and radiated unwavering faith. Soon, as if by divine orchestration, donors appeared, land was offered, doors swung open that no amount of worldly planning could have forced. He taught that this was not coincidence, but cosmic law. When the soul's vibration is lifted to a high, divine pitch, it draws to itself all that is needed for its God-ordained mission, just as surely as the moon draws the tides. This is why he warned against using thought power to attract purely material gains. Such attempts may succeed temporarily, but they weaken the soul's magnetism because they root consciousness in lower desires rather than higher wisdom. A person may manifest wealth and yet feel impoverished of spirit, chained to the very possessions they thought would bring freedom. True manifestation, Yogananda said, is measured not by how much you accumulate, but by how much closer each fulfilled need brings you to God. Divine magnetism never enslaves, it liberates. For what flows to you from spirit carries not burden but bliss. To cultivate this magnetism, Yogananda offered 3 essential practices. The first is deep meditation, for only in stillness can you feel the current of divine energy flowing through your own spine. Each breath drawn in calm devotion charges the inner magnet of your soul. The second is right intention, purifying every desire until it seeks not selfish gain but the fulfillment of your divine purpose. When your goals are aligned with Spirit's plan for your growth, they are charged with cosmic power. The third is selfless action, offering every thought and deed to God as an instrument of blessing for others. Such actions amplify your magnetism, for the universe itself supports those who live to uplift the whole rather than the little self. Beloved, understand this clearly. You cannot become a divine magnet by merely wishing or chanting empty phrases. You must refine your vibration through spiritual discipline, devotion, and surrender. Imagine the inner magnet of your soul covered with dust and rust from lifetimes of fear, attachment, and restless desire. Meditation is the cleansing cloth, prayer the oil of divine grace, and selfless service the force that restores its full power. As you polish this magnet day by day, its silent strength grows. You begin to notice that people, opportunities, and resources you once chased now flow toward you naturally. Problems that seemed immovable shift as if moved by unseen hands. Life begins to respond not to your anxieties, but to the radiant field of peace and faith you carry within. This is the manifestation that the Masters knew, and that Yogananda came to restore to a world lost in materialistic shadows. It was not banned by divine decree, but hidden by misunderstanding and fear of humanity's true spiritual power. And now, as you hear these words and let them settle into the depths of your being, you are rediscovering that power not as a means to grasp at fleeting pleasures, but as a way to live in harmony with the cosmic law that has always awaited your remembrance. Close your eyes for a moment, beloved, and place your hands over your heart. Silently affirm, "The magnet of my soul is cleansed by meditation, charged with divine purpose, and empowered by selfless love. I draw only what Spirit wills for my highest good, and in that I am forever abundant." Beloved, imagine now standing in the serene presence of Yogananda himself, his eyes radiating the calm certainty of one who has walked hand in hand with the infinite. When disciples approached him, asking how they might attract wealth, success, or healing into their lives, he would not hand them a list of affirmations to repeat mindlessly, nor would he encourage them to clamor after possessions as though happiness could be bought with gold. Instead, he would speak softly yet with divine power. Become a divine magnet, and all that you need will be drawn to you. What did he mean by a divine magnet? Just as a physical magnet draws iron not by pushing or grasping but by the silent, invisible force of its magnetic field, so too does the awakened soul draw opportunities, abundance, and even miracles through the unseen power of its spiritual vibration. Yogananda explained that this magnetism is not built through restless mental effort or desperate craving. Rather, It arises naturally when the consciousness is purified of fear, doubt, and selfish desire, and lifted into attunement with God's limitless energy. He often demonstrated this truth through his own life. In the early days of building his spiritual work in the West, there were times when resources seemed scarce, when human reasoning would have said that growth was impossible. Yet Yogananda did not fret or struggle. He entered deep meditation, attuned his will with God's will, and radiated unwavering faith. Soon, as if by divine orchestration, donors appeared, land was offered, doors swung open that no amount of worldly planning could have forced. He taught that this was not coincidence, but cosmic law. When the soul's vibration is lifted to a high, divine pitch, it draws to itself all that is needed for its God-ordained mission, just as surely as the moon draws the tides. This is why he warned against using thought power to attract purely material gains. Such attempts may succeed temporarily, but they weaken the soul's magnetism because they root consciousness in lower desires rather than higher wisdom. A person may manifest wealth and yet feel impoverished of spirit, chained to the very possessions they thought would bring freedom. True manifestation, Yogananda said, is measured not by how much you accumulate but by how much closer each fulfilled need brings you to God. Divine magnetism never enslaves, it liberates. For what flows to you from spirit carries not burden, but bliss. To cultivate this magnetism, Yogananda offered 3 essential practices. The first is deep meditation, for only in stillness can you feel the current of divine energy flowing through your own spine. Each breath drawn in calm devotion charges the inner magnet of your soul. The second is right intention, purifying every desire until it seeks not selfish gain but the fulfillment of your divine purpose. When your goals are aligned with Spirit's plan for your growth, they are charged with cosmic power. The third is selfless action, offering every thought and deed to God as an instrument of blessing for others. Such actions amplify your magnetism, for the universe itself supports those who live to uplift the whole rather than the little self. Beloved, understand this clearly. You cannot become a divine magnet by merely wishing or chanting empty phrases. You must refine your vibration through spiritual discipline, devotion, and surrender. Imagine the inner magnet of your soul covered with dust and rust from lifetimes of fear, attachment, and restless desire. Meditation is the cleansing cloth, prayer the oil of divine grace, and selfless service the force that restores its full power. As you polish this magnet day by day, its silent strength grows. You begin to notice that people, opportunities, and resources you once chased now flow toward you naturally. Problems that seemed immovable shift as if moved by unseen hands. Life begins to respond not to your anxieties but to the radiant field of peace and faith you carry within. This is the manifestation that the Masters knew and that Yogananda came to restore to a world lost in materialistic shadows. It was not banned by divine decree but hidden by misunderstanding and fear of humanity's true spiritual power. And now, as you hear these words and let them settle into the depths of your being, you are rediscovering that power not as a means to grasp at fleeting pleasures, but as a way to live in harmony with the cosmic law that has always awaited your remembrance. Close your eyes for a moment, beloved, and place your hands over your heart. Silently affirm, "The magnet of my soul is cleansed by meditation, charged with divine purpose, and empowered by selfless love. I draw only what Spirit wills for my highest good, and in that I am forever abundant." Beloved, now that you have felt the silent truth of divine magnetism stirring in your own heart, let us go deeper into the 3 hidden laws of spiritual manifestation that Yogananda revealed to earnest seekers. These laws were never meant to be concealed forever. They were simply preserved for those willing to rise above restless desire and walk the path of higher attunement. If you learn them not just with the mind but with the soul, they will become living forces, shaping your destiny not through force of will, but through harmony with Spirit's eternal law. First hidden law, the law of inner attunement. Manifestation begins not in thought or action, but in stillness. Yogananda taught that the root of all lack and suffering is forgetfulness of our divine source. Imagine a lamp connected to an infinite supply of electricity, but covered in layers of grime. The power is present but cannot radiate as light. So it is with the soul. We are eternally connected to God's boundless energy, yet layers of restless thoughts and worldly fears dim the flow of that divine current. Through deep meditation and stillness, you cleanse these layers. Each calm breath, each moment of focused devotion, reopens the channel of divine connection. As the soul attunes inwardly to spirit, divine energy begins to flow freely through the astral spine, revitalizing not only body and mind but also the invisible magnetism that draws circumstances, people, and resources into harmony with your higher purpose. In this law, there is no struggle, no frantic effort to manipulate life. There is only a quiet surrender that says, "Beloved Spirit, thy will be done through me." Yogananda often said that stillness is the first and greatest power. In stillness, you are no longer acting as a fragment struggling against the universe. You become the universe acting through a fragment. And from this state of harmony, manifestation happens effortlessly, as light naturally radiates from the sun without command or strain. Second hidden law, the law of right desire. Once inner attunement is established, desire itself must be examined and refined. Most of humanity's attempts to manifest falter because the desires they nurture are tangled in ego, selfish ambition, or fear of lack. These lower vibrations repel divine abundance even as they grasp for it. Yogananda taught that right desire is desire purified of attachment, refined through selfless intention, and aligned fully with spiritual evolution. Right desire seeks not fleeting pleasure or power over others, but the fulfillment of the soul's mission in this life. When your intentions serve to uplift, to heal, to draw closer to spirit and help others do the same, they are infused with divine energy. Such desires carry a luminous vibration that the universe itself recognizes and responds to. The cosmos rearranges circumstances to support those whose hearts beat in harmony with God's love and wisdom. Yogananda illustrated this truth with stories of devotees who surrendered their restless wishes and instead prayed, "Lord, guide my desires. Let me only want what leads me to thee." When they did, life unfolded with miraculous precision. Opportunities they had once chased appeared naturally. Burdens they feared never arrived. Right desire turns manifestation into a sacred partnership with the infinite, where you no longer beg for outcomes but walk in trust that spirit provides what is needed for your highest good. Third hidden law, the law of magnetic action. Inner attunement and right desire awaken a silent force within you that naturally expresses itself as right action. Unlike the feverish, scattered actions born of anxiety or craving, this divine action is calm, intuitive, and precise. It emerges not from mental planning, but from the whisper of guidance felt in meditation and prayer. When this guidance stirs you to act, you find doors opening before you as though unseen hands are assisting every step. Efforts bear fruit with minimal resistance because they are not powered by human will alone. They are carried on the current of divine magnetism flowing through you. This is why Yogananda could accomplish feats that astonished worldly observers, building temples, founding spiritual centers, healing countless souls, all without the noise of struggle. He acted not as an isolated man, but as an instrument of spirit, and so manifestation happens swiftly, beautifully, and without karmic entanglement. Beloved, these are the three hidden laws. Inner attunement, become still and reconnect with the divine source. Right desire, purify intentions until they resonate with Spirit's will. Magnetic action, let intuitive guidance move you in perfect timing. When you live by these laws, you become a radiant center of divine abundance. You no longer need to chase or demand. Your very being becomes a song that draws blessings in perfect harmony with your soul's journey. Close your eyes now and silently affirm, "Spirit flows through me in stillness. My desires are guided by divine wisdom. My actions are magnetized with God's power. I manifest only what serves my highest good and the highest good of all." Beloved soul, as we move deeper into this revelation, we must now face the great crossroads of manifestation, the choice between material and spiritual fulfillment. Yogananda, in his boundless compassion, never condemned the desire for material well-being. He understood the needs of human life and taught that God does not wish his children to suffer in poverty or limitation. Yet he also warned that when manifestation is sought only for material pleasure, it binds the soul ever tighter to Maya's dream, leaving it restless and unsatisfied even when desires are fulfilled. He explained that material manifestation is like a fleeting mirage in the desert. You may see it shimmering on the horizon, and driven by thirst, rush toward it with great effort. When at last you grasp it, you discover only sand slipping through your fingers. Wealth, possessions, and fleeting pleasures cannot quench the soul's deeper longing for peace, love, and divine joy. No matter how much you manifest in the outer world, the inner heart remains dry unless it drinks from the eternal fountain of spirit. Spiritual manifestation, on the other hand, is the awakening of divine abundance that nourishes both body and soul. It does not reject material provision, but places it in its rightful order, as a byproduct of spiritual alignment, never as the ultimate goal. When you choose spiritual manifestation, you say inwardly, "Lord, above all else, I seek Thee. Fulfill my needs only insofar as they help me remember and serve Thee." With this surrender, life's necessities, health, shelter, resources flow to you naturally, without the anxious striving that drains human vitality. And with them comes something infinitely greater, the peace and joy of knowing that you are one with the infinite, no longer a beggar grasping for crumbs of happiness, but a radiant soul drinking deeply from the boundless ocean of divine bliss. Yogananda often told the story of how even seemingly miraculous material gains could become prisons if pursued without spiritual wisdom. He recounted disciples who sought only wealth and worldly success, believing it would grant them freedom, only to return years later with heavy hearts, burdened by new troubles their riches could not solve. True freedom, he reminded them, cannot be bought nor manifested through mental tricks. It dawns only when the soul is anchored in spirit, for in that state of inner abundance, all outer conditions fall into perfect harmony without struggle. Consider this divine paradox. When you stop chasing after material manifestations and instead seek only God's presence, your life begins to flow with a natural abundance you once thought you had to fight for. The food you need, the work you are meant to do, the relationships that support your growth, all these appear at precisely the right moment, drawn by the silent magnetism of your elevated consciousness. The universe knows what you need better than your restless mind ever could, and when you trust spirit fully, you live in effortless abundance, without becoming attached to anything temporary. This is why Yogananda said that true manifestation is not about making things happen, but about removing the obstacles that block spirit's flow. When ego is dissolved, divine energy moves freely through you, shaping every aspect of your life in perfect balance. What you manifest in this state never burdens you with karmic chains. It lifts you higher into freedom. This is the hidden teaching the world has forgotten. The greatest manifestation is not wealth or power, it is the awakening of divine consciousness itself. And from that awakening, every other need is fulfilled in divine order. Now, beloved, let us pause in silence. Place your hand over your heart and lift your gaze gently to the spiritual eye. Whisper inwardly, "Spirit, I choose Thee above all. Let me manifest only what serves my union with Thee. Guide my life into harmony with Thy will, that I may live as Thy radiant child." Feel these words not as empty phrases, but as living vibrations reshaping the very magnetism of your soul. Beloved, as you have now glimpsed the higher path of manifestation, it is time to anchor this divine understanding into daily practice. Yogananda did not leave these truths as lofty ideals beyond reach. He offered a living, practical science that allows every soul to rise above restless desire and align fully with spirit's magnetic abundance. This science rests on three pillars: meditation, affirmation, and the transformative current of Kriya Yoga. First, meditation is the doorway to inner attunement. Each morning and evening, Yogananda urged seekers to sit quietly, spine straight, eyes gently lifted to the spiritual eye, the point between the eyebrows where divine perception awakens. In this stillness, observe the breath as it flows in and out naturally, letting the turbulence of thought settle like silt sinking to the bottom of a clear lake. As the mind calms, silently call to spirit, not with anxious demands but with the longing of a child returning home to the Divine Mother's arms. In that sacred quiet, you begin to feel a living current of peace and joy rising within. This is not imagination, it is the very vibration of spirit, flowing through the astral spine and charging the soul's inner magnet with divine energy. Second, affirmation is the means by which you reshape the subconscious patterns that bind you to limitation. The masters taught that every thought is a seed, and most minds are overgrown with weeds of fear, doubt, and feelings of unworthiness. To manifest divine abundance, these weeds must be replaced with seeds of truth. Yogananda gave powerful affirmations such as, I am a child of God. I am one with the infinite power of spirit. Divine abundance flows through me, bringing to me everything I need for my highest good. When spoken with calm conviction and focused attention at the spiritual eye, these words vibrate through the mind and body, tuning every cell to a higher frequency. Over time, the subconscious ceases to block divine flow and begins to resonate naturally with cosmic supply. Third, and most profound, is Kriya Yoga, the sacred technique Yogananda described as the airplane route to divine realization. Through Kriya, the restless life force that normally rushes outward through the senses is drawn inward and upward along the astral spine. Each breath becomes a ladder, lifting the consciousness step by step toward spirit. As the practice deepens, the inner magnet of the soul grows immensely powerful. Desires that once pulled you downward lose their hold, and the divine current flowing through you becomes so strong that it silently attracts all that is needed for spiritual and even material well-being. Yogananda declared that one Kriya, practiced with devotion, is like a full year of spiritual evolution. Such is its power to realign your entire being with the cosmic law of abundance. But remember, beloved, these practices are not means to an egoic end. When you meditate, affirm, and practice Kriya, do not fixate on attracting wealth, health, or worldly success. Instead, lift your heart only toward God. Say inwardly, Spirit, I seek Thee alone. If I am meant to have wealth, health, or opportunity, let it come only to draw me closer to Thee. When approached in this spirit of surrender, miracles unfold naturally. Needs are met without struggle, doors open without force, and even apparent losses reveal themselves as blessings guiding you to higher freedom. Yogananda assured his disciples that when you live this way, you will never lack what is truly yours. The divine magnet within you grows so strong that, without clinging or grasping, life begins to reflect your inner harmony. Friends, resources, and opportunities that serve your soul's growth are drawn to you with divine precision, while everything that would hinder your upward journey falls away of its own accord. Let us seal this teaching with a silent practice. Close your eyes and take a long, slow breath. As you inhale, feel divine energy rising up your spine like a golden river. Hold the breath gently and silently affirm, I am one with Spirit's power. As you exhale, release every fear, every restless desire, and inwardly whisper, Thy will be done. Repeat this several times, feeling the inner magnet of your soul growing stronger, shining brighter, until you sense that you no longer need to chase life, for life itself flows toward you, guided by the unseen hand of Spirit. Beloved, as we arrive now at the summit of this sacred journey, we stand before the highest truth of manifestation, the final revelation Yogananda longed for every sincere seeker to know. All the earlier steps stilling the mind, aligning desire with spirit, awakening divine magnetism through meditation and Kriya never meant to make you a more skilled seeker of outer rewards. They were always leading you to this single, luminous realization. When you unite with God, there is nothing left to manifest, for you have become one with the infinite source of all. In this divine state, the very question of attracting or lacking anything vanishes like a mirage in the blazing sun of realization. The soul, having shed the restless cravings of the ego and dissolved the illusion of separateness, awakens to its eternal nature as a ray of spirit itself. Imagine a wave upon the ocean, tossing and turning in fear that it might not reach the shore, that it must gather all the waters it can to feel complete. Yet when it realizes it is not merely a wave, but the ocean itself, infinite and unfathomable, all grasping ends. So it is with the soul. Once it knows itself as spirit, it rests in perfect, unshakable abundance. This is why Yogananda said, Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. The things the world chases security, health, companionship, joy are only faint reflections of the boundless treasure waiting in divine union. When you find God, you find the source of every joy you have ever pursued in fragmentary form. The bliss of spirit is so vast that even the greatest pleasures of earth become pale shadows beside it. Nothing is missing, Nothing is incomplete. Your cup overflows with a joy that is eternal, untouched by change or loss. The great masters who walked this path before us, Krishna, Christ, Buddha, Babaji, and countless saints, did not speak of manifestation as the world teaches it. They manifested miracles effortlessly, yes, but not because they learned to manipulate matter with mental force. They became instruments of the divine. The power that healed the sick, multiplied loaves of bread, or calmed storms did not belong to them as individuals. It flowed through them because they had become fully transparent to Spirit's will. In their realization, there was no ego left to claim credit or seek reward. There was only God acting through them in perfect harmony. Beloved, this is the destiny Yogananda came to remind you of. Not to live as a beggar of fleeting gifts, but to awaken as a divine heir to the infinite kingdom of Spirit. When your meditation carries you beyond breath, beyond thought, into the vast silence of superconsciousness, you begin to taste this truth. In that silence, there is no reaching outward, for abundance it is already there, woven into the eternal fabric of your being. Let us enter that silence now, even for a moment. Close your eyes and lift your gaze gently to the spiritual eye. Feel as though your consciousness is expanding upward, rising above the body, beyond the mind, until it merges into a boundless sea of golden light. In that light, silently affirm, I am not seeking abundance. I am abundance itself, for I am one with Spirit. I do not manifest from the world, I shine as the source of every blessing. Breathe softly and imagine every desire, every fear, every restless grasping dissolving into this radiant ocean. Feel the stillness of divine fulfillment permeating every atom of your being. Sense that you no longer need to draw anything toward you, for all creation is already contained within your soul, as waves are contained within the ocean. This is the final and highest manifestation, to know and live as the infinite itself. And when you return from this silence to daily life, something miraculous happens. Without effort, without clinging, the outer circumstances of your life begin to reflect the inner realization. Needs are met before they are spoken, challenges melt away, and you find yourself carrying an unseen shield of grace wherever you go. You no longer measure success by what you attract or accumulate, but by how deeply you abide in divine joy and how fully you can share that joy with others. This is the teaching that was hidden, the truth feared by worldly powers, yet preserved by the masters for those who are ready. You are not meant to live as a limited seeker of abundance. You are destined to awaken as a living channel of God's infinite abundance. Beloved, let us seal this journey with one final affirmation, a sacred decree whispered from your soul to the infinite. Spirit alone is my treasure. In thee, all is fulfilled. I am not separate. I am one with the divine source of every joy. And as thy light shines through me, all is perfectly provided. I live no longer in fear or striving, for I am forever abundant in thee. Sit in this realization as long as you can, letting its vibrations saturate your consciousness. From this moment forward, know that the greatest manifestation you could ever achieve is not something to gain, but the awakening of your own soul into the infinite freedom and joy of God. This world you see around you, with its flashing lights and trembling shadows, its pleasures and fears, its news and noise, and constant hunger, this world is not what you think it is. It is not the ground beneath your feet, nor the source of your joy, nor the truth of your suffering. It is a dream, divinely projected, sustained by the light of God, yet mistaken by the soul as its home. I tell you with the authority of inner vision, what you call reality is but a motion picture, flickering across the screen of cosmic mind, and you, dear soul, are not the actor caught in the scene. You are the light behind the film, the still witness behind the noise, the eternal observer mistakenly mesmerized by the dance of forms. Everything you see will disappear: your name, your house, your fears, your body, your memories, and yet you trust it more than the one who never leaves. That is the sorrow of Maya, that it makes the temporary seem permanent, the outer seem important, and the eternal seem invisible. But you were never born to be fooled, you were born to wake. You suffer because you try to build on sand. You cry because you love shadows. You fall because you have forgotten the wings of your soul. The great drama of life was never meant to be mistaken, as life itself, it is God's dream. a majestic school for your awakening, not a prison for your identity. When you cry over loss, it is because you thought something was yours that never truly was. When you cling to approval, it is because you thought your worth was determined by opinion, not by spirit. When you fear death, it is because you forgot that you never truly began. My beloved, what is born must die, what appears must vanish, but the soul is not a thing in time. The soul is the stillness behind time, the flame behind your eyes, the current behind your thoughts. And it waits for you, every day, behind the noise of this world, whispering, "This is not real. I am." Picture this life as a movie playing on a great screen. The characters move, the scenes change, joy and sorrow flash like lightning across the sky of perception. And you, entranced by the play, forget that behind the colors and motion, there is a beam of divine light making the illusion possible. Cut the beam, and the movie ends, but the screen remains. The screen is God, changeless and eternal. The beam is your attention, your consciousness. Where you focus, there you suffer or awaken. This world has no independent existence. It is real only because God allows it to be projected. But the goal is not to get lost in the drama. The goal is to see the projector, the light, the screen, and, finally, to realize that you are not in the movie. You are the witness who came to remember. Let us pause now. Breathe with me. Inhale slowly, hold, exhale deeply. Feel the unreality of what you cling to. Feel the silence beneath your breath. In that silence is the first thread of truth. It is the quiet beneath every sound, the stillness beneath every motion, the peace beneath every pain. That stillness is more real than anything you will ever see or touch in this world. Do you feel it? Good. Now let us walk further into the secret of your divine origin, which no shadow can touch. Before the stars were spun from the breath of the infinite, before the suns burned in space, before time ever wrapped its cold fingers around thought, before this world shimmered into form like a mirage upon the sands of spirit, you already were pure, uncreated, untouched, unborn. You, O soul, are not the offspring of biology or the echo of chemical chance. You are the immortal spark of the one flame, the silent witness who has worn many names, many faces, many costumes in the theater of incarnation, but has never truly been altered by any of them. The body is not your home, the mind is not your master, the emotions are not your compass. These are but layers of dream wool wrapped around your being as you journey through the shadows of forgetfulness. What you call birth is but your entrance onto this stage. What you call death is merely the curtain's fall. And in between you improvise a role written by karma, but chosen by your deeper self. The soul, the soul is like a traveler who, on a divine pilgrimage, stops at many inns, dons many robes, speaks many tongues, but never forgets that the path is not the destination and the journey is not the self. Through the science of Kriya Yoga, I have seen how the soul descends, like a ray from the sun, into the womb of matter, cloaking itself in astral energy, then in gross flesh, each layer a denser vibration than the one before, each step a further descent into the illusion of separation. But the soul is never truly trapped, it only appears to be veiled, just as the sun may seem lost on a cloudy day, though it still burns beyond the gray. Your body is but a costume, your personality is but a script, but you, behind it all, are the actor who has never forgotten the original stage, the infinite sky of spirit. You may ask, why then do I feel so human, so heavy, so bound to this earth? And I say, because you have mistaken the reflection for the source, the echo for the voice, the garment for the wearer. The ocean sends up waves, and the waves may imagine they are alone, distinct, separate, struggling to survive in a stormy sea. But if even one wave remembers that it is the ocean, if even one soul pauses and says, I am not this motion, I am the deep, then the whole ocean rejoices, for God remembers himself through that soul. My beloved, you were never created in the way the world defines creation. You were emanated, like light from the sun, like fragrance from a rose, like melody from a divine flute. You did not begin, you only entered the play of seeming beginnings. You are not the result of circumstances. You are the cause that gave rise to them. Breathe again. Inhale deeply and whisper within, I was never born. Exhale and affirm, I only dreamed I was asleep. Feel the echo of those words stir within the chambers of your being. You have not come here to become something new. You have come here to remember something ancient. Your divine origin is not a poetic notion, it is the very foundation of your being. God did not create you out of dust. He dreamt you into existence as His own reflection. And now He longs for you to turn inward and see that you were never anything less. You are the soul, not the birth certificate. The light, not the name. The witness, not the changing roles you play across lifetimes. Now, let us move forward not into greater knowledge, but into deeper remembrance. For if you know that you are not this body, not this timeline, not this fleeting experience, then you are ready to confront the veil that hides the real behind the unreal, the veil called Maya. Let us now, with courage and holy stillness, unmask the cosmic hypnotist and reveal the dream for what it is. Maya, the subtle and terrible weaver of unreality, the grand illusionist whose threads are spun not from cloth but from vibration, not from substance but from seeming. It is she who cloaks the face of God with a veil of matter and time and name and desire, and causes the immortal soul to believe it is a temporary body, causes the oceanic spirit to mistake itself for a drop, causes the deathless to fear death and the eternal to fear change. She is not evil in essence, but delusion in function. Born of the infinite's play, the lila, the divine sport by which the one becomes many, the formless dawns form, the seer becomes the seen, and then forgets it is a sacred amnesia permitted by God to make the game of separation possible. Yet that game turns to suffering when the soul forgets it was always the player and not the pawn. Maya is not a myth. My child, it is the most intimate experience you have every day. It is the longing for possessions that will rot, the chasing of praise that will fade, the fear of loss that blinds the eyes to what was never truly yours, the restlessness that says, I must have this, and the grief that whispers, I have lost everything. Maya speaks through the language of senses. It paints reality with a brush of duality. And it seduces the ego with promises of pleasure that never satisfy and threats of pain that never destroy. It is the reason you forget your immortality when someone criticizes you, the reason you panic over what will pass, the reason you laugh at the eternal and cry over the temporary. It is the current that pulls the mind outward, outward, always outward toward the movie screen of appearances and away from the hidden projector of spirit. Do not hate Maya, but do not trust her. She is the velvet curtain between your eyes and God. She is the force that makes the dream so vivid that you cry over shadows and rejoice over illusions. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, this Maya of mine is difficult to overcome, and yet he immediately adds, but to those who take refuge in me, it is easily transcended. Maya cannot be defeated by intellect, for she wears the robes of logic. She cannot be banished by pleasure, for she seduces through it. She cannot be outrun by ambition, for she rides on its back. She can only be pierced by the sword of divine discrimination, sharpened by stillness, and wielded by the soul that knows, I am not this, I am that. You may ask, but why would God permit such delusion? And I tell you, it is because love cannot be compelled, only chosen. If there were no illusion, there would be no freedom. If there were no forgetting, there could be no remembrance. If there were no Maya, there would be no awakening. For the dream gives meaning to the realization that it was never real. God, in love, created Maya not to punish, but to Plato give you the sacred choice. Will you worship the light or the reflection? Will you live as a body with a soul, or as a soul wearing a body? Will you drift in the currents of time, or rise in the stillness of eternity? Breathe now. Breathe slowly, and as you exhale, whisper silently, I do not trust appearances. I seek the real. Again, inhale. Feel the breath as light. Exhale. Feel it as release. For each breath not claimed by Maya is a step closer to the kingdom within. And now, having unmasked the deluding power that binds so many souls to sorrow, we must expose its chief servant, the false self, the ego, the greatest mask of all. Come, let us unveil the shadow that hides the face of the soul. And now, dear one, we arrive at the most subtle impostor, the most persistent illusion, the most intimate deceiver, the ego, that whispering voice which says, "This is me," when it is only a mask, a shadow, a wave forgetting the ocean from which it rose, a reflection believing itself to be the face, a temporary ripple in the stream of eternity, mistaking itself for the source. It is not your friend, nor your enemy, it is your amnesia. It is the fog that settles over the mirror of the soul and causes the infinite to see itself as finite, the changeless to believe it is constantly becoming, the ever free to feel bound by time, by body, by roles, by names, by success, by failure, by all the passing shapes of the dream. The ego is not a thing, it is a habit, a mental reflex born from identification with form. It clings to roles like armor and says, "I am a mother, a student, a seeker, a sinner, a success, a failure," forgetting that all these labels are like costumes hung on a cosmic rack, worn for a time, then removed when the curtain falls. It thrives on comparison. It must be better than, smarter than, more spiritual than, more wounded than, more deserving than, and yet beneath its grasping lies terror, the quiet tremor of knowing it is not real, that it cannot exist without constant reinforcement, constant attention, constant storytelling, for the ego does not live in truth, it survives in narrative. It cannot stand silence, for silence exposes its fiction. It cannot endure stillness, for stillness reveals the watcher behind the mask. And so it feeds on thought, on noise, on motion, always whispering, "Be more, do more, prove more, fear more," never allowing you to pause long enough to ask, "But who is this I that seeks so feverishly?" The ego is not to be hated, for it is part of the divine game. It is the veil that makes awakening meaningful, but it must not be believed. For every time you obey its voice, you add another layer between you and the soul. You become a puppet of opinions, a prisoner of ambition, a seeker lost in seeking itself. The ego walks into every spiritual path and says, "Look how holy I am." It uses even pain to validate its story. "See how much I've suffered, surely that makes me real." But suffering cannot make you real. Only awakening can. And to awaken, you must see the ego not as your identity, but as your temporary lens. Not as yourself, but as your cloak. Take a breath now. A deep, slow breath. As you inhale, say inwardly, "I am not this mask." As you exhale, affirm, "I am the light behind it." Again gently, reverently. I am not this story, I am the witness. Can you feel the shift? That subtle flicker, that spacious awareness beyond name, beyond role, beyond thought, that is you, beloved. That is the soul. And the soul does not strive, does not cling, does not panic, does not compete. It watches, it loves, it knows, it simply is. Now, come further with me. We have exposed the illusion, the weaver, and the mask. Let us now remember the self, the true self, the spirit, untouched by shadow, unbound by time, unseen by eyes, but known in the depths of silence, felt in the still chamber of being that no noise can reach. The false must fall, that the real may rise. Let us rise now. Let us enter the sanctuary of what never began and can never end. Let us meet the soul. O seeker of truth, if the waves of illusion have crashed against your heart and the winds of ego have howled through the hollow chambers of your longing, then hear now this eternal whisper from the depths of your being. You are not what changes. You are not what suffers. You are not what craves, fears, competes, or decays. You are the witness, the silent presence, the unmoved seer who has watched empires rise and fall, who has looked out through 1,000 eyes across lifetimes, who has heard the same ocean of longing roll through different names, different ages, different bodies, and yet has remained calm, luminous, untouched. You are not your childhood. You are not your future. You are not your triumphs or your traumas. You are not the contents of your thoughts. You are that within which all of it appears and disappears. You are the still sky through which the clouds pass. You are the silence beneath every sound. You are the Suland. The soul was never born and will never die. The body may change, wrinkle, grow tired, or collapse. The mind may swirl with memories, hopes, and fears. Emotions may storm like wind across the surface of a lake. But you, dear one, are the depth of that lake, unshaken by weather, undisturbed by the surface, never drowned by the world's noise. From that place of stillness, you have always watched as your hands changed shape, watched as those you loved came and went, watched as the world offered promises it could not keep, watched as your own thoughts told you were small, or lost, or not enough, and yet something in you knew. But I am still here. I was here before the pain. I was here after the laughter. I was here when the name was first given. I will be here when the name is forgotten. This is the self, not the personality, but the perceiver. Not the voice in your head, but the space in which the voice speaks. Not the candle, but the flame. Not the memory, but the light that remembers. The Bhagavad Gita says, "The soul is never born, nor does it die. It does not come into being, nor cease to exist." Unborn, eternal, changeless, it is not slain when the body is slain. What a thunderous truth! You do not become eternal, you remember that you already are. You do not need to achieve anything to be free, you must only stop pretending to be what you are not. You are not the scenery of this world. You are the light in which the scenery is seen. Inhale now, slowly, reverently. As you do, say silently, "I am not this change." Exhale gently, "I am the changeless." Again breathe with remembrance, not routine. I am not the seen, I am the seer. Let these words enter the bloodstream of your soul. For when you speak from this place, every cell hears it. The illusion begins to loosen. The false identifications begin to crumble. The dust of lifetimes begins to settle, revealing the quiet, unblinking flame at the center of your being. And now that you have tasted, even slightly, the flavor of your eternal self, let us go deeper still. Let us explore how the things you cling to, matter, emotion, thought, are nothing more than painted veils drifting across the mirror of the infinite. Let us walk through the realms of illusion together, not with fear, but with the lamp of truth burning steadily in our hearts. For only by seeing the false can we fully choose the real. Come, soul. The dream is thinning. The dawn of truth draws near. Look closely at the world around you, at the table beneath your hands, at the buildings in your city, at the trees rising toward the sky, at the body you call your own, with its bone and blood and breath and name, and realize, with the eyes of the soul, that none of it is as it seems, that all form is flickering, all matter is movement slowed into shape, all solidity is a song of atoms spinning in emptiness, all structure is a temporary dance of divine vibration, frozen into an appearance of permanence that fools the senses, but cannot deceive the awakened gaze. For matter is not reality, it is energy wearing a mask. And that energy is thought, and that thought is divine. A condensation of spirit into patterns of seeming so convincing that the soul, descending into a body, forgets it is light and believes it is flesh, forgets it is the painter and begins to suffer as the painting. This illusion is the first veil of Maya, the illusion of matter, of time, of space. It says, "You are here, and so you forget you are everywhere." It says, "This object is solid, and so you forget it is 99% space." It says, "This body is who you are, and so you forget you were never born." But just as the cinema screen remains untouched by the story projected upon it, whether a war or a wedding, a birth or a death, so your consciousness remains untouched by the drama of this world, even while you seem to live within it. Even modern science whispers this truth, that time bends, that space is relative, that particles do not even exist until observed, that light behaves like both wave and particle, depending on how you look. Do you see? Even your science has begun to tremble at the edge of the sacred, that what we call reality is not fixed, not stable, not true in the way your soul knows truth to be. The body ages, the world spins, stars explode, galaxies collide, but spirit remains. And you, dear one, are that spirit. You do not move, though the body walks. You do not die, though the flesh falls. You do not change, though the universe rearranges itself 1,000 times before your breath completes its cycle. Matter is a mask. Time is a trance. Form is the trick of the divine hypnotist. But you are the witness of the trick. And once you see that the rabbit in the magician's hat is only a symbol, you no longer cry when it vanishes. Take a long, still breath. Inhale with the spine erect. Feel the body as light. Exhale with quiet reverence. Whisper inside, I am not this form, I am the light behind it. Again, feel it not with intellect, but with devotion. Let the idea melt into knowing. For the more you release your grasp on matter, the more you rise into the radiance of spirit. Come now, let us lift another veil. For not only is matter an illusion, but your emotions and thoughts, the very things you often mistake for your identity, are even more fleeting, even more deceptive, and even more in need of unmasking. Let us continue our journey through the dream, that we may awaken into what was never asleep. Now let us move deeper still, beyond the veils of matter and form, into the inner theater where most souls become trapped not by the world outside, but by the ceaseless waves within the rise and fall of emotion. The tangle and chatter of thought, the shifting tides of sensation and inner narrative which, though entirely intangible, are taken as truth, as reality, as the very definition of selfhood. And so the soul becomes ensnared, not by chains of steel, but by clouds, not by prisons with walls, but by patterns of feeling, belief, and memory that arise and pass like wind, yet are mistaken for identity, for destiny, for me, when in truth they are nothing more than vibrations, impressions, echoes dancing across the surface of your true self like ripples on a still lake, which, when stilled, reveals the stars. Emotions, yes, how mighty they feel, how absolute in their grip, how real when they surge through the heart, when sorrow makes the chest heavy or joy sends it soaring, when fear crawls up the spine or love blossoms behind the eye sand, yet every one of them is a visitor, not a tenant, a traveler, not the land, a guest that knocks and leaves, sometimes invited, often uninvited, but always impermanent. For no emotion has ever lasted, and none can define the soul that witnesses them. You are not your anger, you are not your grief, you are not even your happiness. These are all waves, some strong, some soft, some painful, some beautiful, but all of them made of water, and water does not last unless frozen by attention, unless grasped by the mind and called mine. But even when frozen, even when named, even when clung to, emotion melts, because it was never yours, never you. It was an energy, an expression, a movement through the field of your being, asking to be seen, felt, honored, then released. And thoughts, those constant visitors, those slippery echoes of past and future, those scripts written by memory and hope and fear and conditioning, how persistent they are, how endlessly convincing, how quick to claim power as if each one were law, as if the sentence in your head, I am not enough, or I must prove myself, or they don't love me, were handed down by God instead of manufactured in the machinery of Maya. How quickly we obey them, how fully we believe them, forgetting that a thought is just a sound without a voice, a movement without mass, a flicker without fire unless we feed it with belief. You are not your thoughts. No matter how loud, no matter how frequent, no matter how intimate they feel, you are not the thinker, you are the watcher of thought. You are the sky that watches the weather, not the clouds that come and go. You are the silence between the words, not the sentence that passes through. Say it now, slowly. Thoughts are not the thinker. Waves are not the sea. Again whisper it like a secret you are remembering, not learning. Emotions pass, the soul remains. Inhale slowly through the nose, exhale gently through the heart. Feel the stillness behind the movement. Feel the one who watches without judgment. That is you, not the sadness, not the story, not the sensation, but the sacred perceiver behind it all. If you can see a thing, you are not that thing. You cannot be what you observe. And since you can observe your thoughts, your feelings, your reactions, your breath, your body, then you must be something else. You must be the spirit that stands behind all change, behind all flickering, behind all noise, behind even the desire to awaken. And when you see that clearly, even for a moment, a door opens a door into freedom, into peace, into a love that is not emotional but eternal, not expressive but all-pervasive. And so, beloved, now that you have seen the illusion of matter and the mirage of emotion, the theater of thought and the dance of form, let us not merely understand these truths intellectually. Let us now practice the path of rising beyond them, not by escaping the world, but by no longer mistaking it for home. Let us walk the path from illusion to experience, from belief to embodiment, from dreaming to divine remembrance. The soul is ready. The time is now. Now that your eyes have opened a little more to the impermanence of this fleeting world, and your heart has begun to discern the difference between the echo and the eternal, let us turn from philosophy to practice. For truth that is not lived remains buried, and realization without repetition is like a seed left unwatered full of potential, but not yet blossomed in. So I speak to you now, not merely to instruct the mind, but to awaken the will, to guide the body, to retune the breath and spine and gaze, so that you may walk each day, not as one hypnotized by Maya, but as one returning to God, with every inhalation drawing you out of the dream, and every exhalation dissolving the false self like morning mist before the sunrise of the soul. Begin your day not by reaching for the phone, not by opening the news, not by placing your awareness into the world of shadows, but by turning within before the first word is spoken, before the first thought is welcomed, before the first emotion tries to claim your attention. Sit upright, in stillness, with the spine as your sacred altar, the breath as your silent chant, and the gaze gently lifted toward the Christ center, that sacred point between the eyebrows where spirit is remembered and illusion loses its grip. Sit there for just a few minutes in the morning, and you will find that the whole day begins to echo with eternity. Close the eyes, but open the inner vision. Silence the tongue, but speak devotion within. Still the body, and feel the subtle movement of God within your breath. Each inhale is the rope pulling you inward. Each exhale is the loosening of worldly bondage. Sit not to achieve, but to return. Sit not to gain, but to remember. As you breathe, begin to gently observe your breath, not to control it harshly, but to accompany it as a witness, a friend, a child of the infinite, watching the river of divine motion flow through the nostrils, the lungs, the blood, the cells, reminding every part of you, this breath is not mine. This breath is God's whisper moving through me. Let the mind try to distract you. Let the emotions knock. Let the to-do list rise like a wave. Simply return to the breath. Return to the gaze. Return to the stillness. Return, return, return. And as the mind quiets, speak within, affirm with the full power of your soul, not from the lips but from the light behind your spine. I am the soul. I am the witness. I am the light. Let this be your mantra, your medicine, your magnet. Repeat it with reverence, not repetition. Let it ring with meaning. Let it pierce through the fog of thought and the dust of memory. Say it not to become the soul, but to stop pretending that you are anything else. Let it echo in your heart like a temple bell. Let it rise up the spine like golden nectar. Let it fill the space behind your forehead until nothing else remains. Practice this not once, not when convenient, not as a technique, but as a sacred ritual of homecoming, as the way the soul says to the universe each morning, I know who I am. I know why I'm here. I choose to awaken. And if you fall back into the dream later in the day, do not fear. Simply return. Even one moment of true remembrance dissolves hours of illusion. Even one breath taken in God awareness is more healing than 1,000 taken in forgetfulness. For the soul is not far away. The soul is always here, waiting in silence, behind the noise, beneath the emotion, within the breath. So begin again. Each day, each morning, each moment, choose to sit in stillness, choose to watch the breath, choose to lift the gaze, choose to speak the truth within. And slowly, like the rising of the sun, the dream will begin to break, the veil will begin to lift, and what was once taken as real will be revealed as fleeting, and what was once forgotten as distant, spirit will be remembered as your own. Self, nearer than breath, older than time, and more solid than the world you once believed was home. Let us now continue not only to meditate in silence, but to carry that clarity into life itself, into action, into relationship, into each moment of decision. Let us now learn to walk through the dream without becoming the dreamer. Let us watch the movie of life, not from the screen, but from the soul's seat in the audience, calm, clear, and eternally free. There is a secret, beloved, hidden in plain sight, a truth known by the sages and whispered by the saints, a practice not of escaping the world, but of seeing it rightly, not of rejecting life, but of piercing through it with eyes that no longer believe it to be the source of reality. For once you begin to watch the world as a movie and yourself, not as the character but as the witnessing soul seated in the audience, untouched by the drama, the emotion, the rise and fall of the plot, then liberation begins not after death, but here, now, in the midst of every breath, every sorrow, every conversation, every duty that used to bind you, but now becomes the stage upon which God dances, and you remain free, awake, and aligned with the one behind it all. This is the way of the master's not withdrawal from life, but unshakable awareness in life, a daily discipline of remembrance, a training of perception, a reprogramming of attention, so that even as you go about the responsibilities of the body, you remain anchored in the breathless realm of spirit. Even as you move among family and work and noise, your soul remains calm, centered, watching from the eye of eternity while the world turns like a wheel before you. This is how to walk in Maya without becoming its prisoner, to speak without losing your silence, to act without falling into attachment, to love without clinging, to serve without forgetting that you are the eternal self, merely wearing this name, this face, this body, for a little while like a robe soon to be returned to the earth from which it came. The movie will play, yes it must, for this is the soul's school. The divine drama scripted by karma and guided by higher laws so subtle, so vast, that your mind cannot grasp them, but you need not be the character who suffers, who hopes and fears and wins and loses. You may be the seer instead, the one who knows, this scene too shall pass. And because you no longer grasp, you no longer grieve, because you no longer cling, you no longer ache, because you see through it, you begin to shine from within it, untouched by the fire, unstained by the tears, for your awareness is no longer locked inside the illusion but freed into the vastness of spirit from which the illusion arises like mist over a sunlit sea. Practice this now, beloved, as you move through your day. Before each action, pause, not for long, only for a breath. And in that breath, ask yourself, is this eternal? And if it is, note if the thought, the worry, the reaction, the opinion, the urgency you feel is not eternal, let it pass. Watch it like a cloud drifting by. Smile at its illusion. Act if needed, but act from peace. Speak if needed, but speak from soul. Choose, decide, move, but do so from the seat of the witness, not from the mask of the ego. And if you forget, begin again. If you fall into identification, forgive the self gently and return. There is no punishment in forgetting, only delay. But each return is powerful. Each remembrance cracks the illusion a little more. Each act of calm awareness shortens the dream and widens the soul. And when the day is done, before sleep, take a few moments to bless the day. Sit quietly, lift the gaze, watch the breath, and offer everything, every thought, every word, every moment, back to God. Say within, all that I thought was mine, I offer back to thee. All that passed through me, I now release. Let me dream no more. Let me wake in thee. And sleep not as one who ends a day, but as one who returns to the light from which the day was born. This is the way of the yogi in the world, not above it, not afraid of it, not distracted by it, but awakened within it, anchored in the eternal while the fleeting dances before the eyes, never again fooled by the motion of Maya, but forever returned to the stillness of the self, which watches all, embraces all, and remains untouched, unchanging, and free. Come, dear one, there is more yet to be said. Let us now explore how to live in this world without being of it, to act in love without clinging in fear, to remain lotus-like upon the waters of illusion, blooming in light yet rooted in silence. Now we arrive at a sacred threshold, where the aspirant begins to taste what the saints have known all along, that freedom is not an escape from action, nor a denial of responsibility, nor a severing of worldly ties, but rather the art of walking through the world with the heart turned upward and the gaze turned inward, where you no longer confuse the doing with the being, nor the result with your value, nor the praise or blame of others with your identity. For here is the truth. To live in two worlds is not a contradiction, but a divine balance, to serve in the outer world while dwelling always in the inner sanctuary, to perform each duty with the hands of devotion, while the soul remains seated on the throne of divine awareness. unmoved, unshaken, unbound. This is what the great scriptures meant when they taught, "Be in the world, but not of it." For the soul must descend into this dream to learn, to burn away old tendencies, to polish the mirror of consciousness through joy and sorrow and loss and gain, but it need not forget its origin, need not take the costume as the self, need not mistake the stage for the sky above it. And so, the yogi moves through this life like a lotus rising from muddy water, present, but never polluted, rooted, but never trapped, engaged, but never identified, each petal a blessing, each breath a hymn, each action a silent offering at the feet of the eternal beloved. And so, beloved, when you act from the soul, when you serve as though serving the Spirit in all, when you speak as though your voice were the flute of God, letting only that which is pure and healing pass through, when you feel pain, acknowledge it, but do not possess it, when you feel joy, experience it, but do not demand it. Let all things rise and fall upon the canvas of your awareness, like waves upon the shore, never clinging, never resisting, always returning, always remembering. I act, but I do not grasp. I love, but I do not cling. I live, but I remember I am not from here. And you must affirm this often, for the world will tempt you to forget. It will dress up illusions as truth, offer you identities to wear, stories to believe, attachments to cherish, fears to obey, but you must be vigilant, not with tension, but with reverence, not with suspicion, but with inner poise, like a flame in windless air, steady and bright, unmoved by what moves around it. You must learn to act as a divine instrument, not as the player. You must remember that each person you meet is a reflection of God, veiled in temporary form. You must remember that each task is a chance to practice presence, and each moment of pleasure or pain is a test. Will you remember who you are, or will you fall back into sleep? To live in two worlds is to live as Christ lived, as Krishna taught, as every illumined soul revealed, not in withdrawal, but in transcendence, not in hiding, but in freedom that shines through presence. This body, this mind, this life, they are not obstacles to God, they are vehicles of God. But only when you cease claiming them, only when you cease worshiping them, only when you use them, lightly, lovingly, but never as your home. The soul cannot belong to anything that passes. The soul belongs only to God. And so let your life become a river that flows without fear. Let your heart become a sun that warms but does not cling. Let your mind become a sky that holds all weather without believing it. Let your hands become instruments of service, and your breath become a rhythm of remembrance. And in doing so, you shall live in two worlds, the world of action and the world of spirit, but you will know which is real and which is shadow. You will walk through the dream, yes, but you will never again be fooled by it. You will be awake, and in that wakefulness, even the smallest act becomes divine. Even the silent gaze becomes a prayer. Let us now step into the final chamber of realization, not only to know what is unreal, but to anchor in the eternal, to root ourselves so deeply in the self that no storm, no sorrow, no change can ever again make us forget that we are children of the infinite, born not for illusion, but for awakening. And now, beloved soul, after walking with me through illusion, through disidentification, through the dusty corridors of ego and the dissolving veils of Maya, I invite you to come home, not in thought, not in theory, not in poetic longing, but in direct remembrance, in embodied stillness, in the sacred act of anchoring yourself not in the world that shifts, but in the reality that was never born, never moves, never ends, never forgets, never fears, never longs, for it is already whole, already free, already perfect. This is the true self, the divine Atman within you, the silent witness behind all dreaming, and to remember, it is not to believe something new, but to cease believing in the false, to let go of all that changes, and to rest, finally and eternally, in the changeless. You are not the soul because a book says so, not because a teacher declares it, not because a scripture affirms it. You are the soul because nothing else remains when all illusion falls away, when all the names are dropped, when all desires grow silent, when the mind no longer narrates and the senses no longer demand, there remains only the quiet, the presence, the knowing that you are, and that your beingness has no beginning and no border. that your essence was never formed by flesh and will not dissolve with it. For you are the beam of light sent from the infinite to shine for a little while within the dream of form, not to become it, but to awaken through it, to pierce the veil and say, "Ah, even here, even in this fleeting world, God is," and then to return, with still eyes and wide breath, into the chamber of eternal remembrance. So declare this now, not with your lips alone, but with your posture, with your stillness, with your breath and gaze and intention and devotion. I am the soul, not the scenery. I am the light, not the flickering. I am the breathless stillness behind all sound. Speak it again. Let it rise up the spine. Let it echo through your chest. Let it vibrate through your cells like a bell tolling across a mountain. For when you speak truth, not as theory, but as invocation, the body listens, the subconscious aligns, the aura harmonizes, and your very atoms begin to sing with divine remembrance. You are not what the world made you. You are what God remembers of you. Now sit. Sit like a saint remembering the infinite. Sit like a soul no longer lost in the play. Sit as though the universe were watching, for it is. Let the breath slow. Let the thoughts recede like waves returning to sea. Let the gaze lift not with strain, but with reverence stow the point between the eyebrows, that secret passageway where the soul communes with the eternal. And as you do this, do not seek, do not strive, simply say within, with holy breath, inhale, I remember. Exhale, I return. Inhale again, feel God's presence moving through you. Exhale again, feel all illusion falling away. Now, in the sacred stillness of your own soul, I invite you to make a vow, not to me, not to this message, but to the light within you that has waited patiently behind every thought, every mistake, every moment of pain, every joy, every doubt. Right below, not to be seen, but to seal your intention in this world and the next. I live in the world, but I walk with the eternal. Let this vow not be a promise of perfection, but a declaration of direction. Let it guide your mornings and seal your evenings. Let it awaken you when the dream thickens and remind you when the ego begins to rise again. And now, dear one, let us pass into the great silence together, not the silence of absence, but the silence of presence, the silence in which the soul remembers, the silence in which God is no longer distant, the silence in which nothing needs to be said, because everything has already been given, everything has already been received. Gaze into the spiritual eye, not to see visions, but to let go of all seeing. Breathe not to survive, but to merge. Sit not to achieve, but to be. For the world will keep moving, but you have found the still point. The days will rise and fall, but you have remembered the timeless. And while others chase shadows, you have touched the sun. Let this be the life you live now, not as a character in the dream, but as the light behind it, awake, eternal, and free. Now let us not speak for a moment, not because there is nothing more to say, but because the deepest truths are not uttered in syllables, nor taught through thoughts, nor passed through words. They are entered like a temple without walls. They are received like sunlight on skin. They are known like breath in the chest before it is named. They are absorbed like music that leaves no echo, because it merges with the Suland. This, beloved, this is the temple into which we now pass, not by step, not by thought, but by stillness, by breath, by surrender, by that sacred silence in which all that is unreal dissolves, and all that is real is revealed to have been here all along, waiting behind your eyes, pulsing in your heart, humming in your spine, rising and falling like the breath that first called you into form and will one day call you back beyond it. Let the eyes now close, not to retreat from the world, but to return to the light that outshines it. Let the breath now soften, not as withdrawal, but as a prayer, a return, a merging with the eternal rhythm of spirit which has pulsed through every life, every incarnation, every longing, every step you have taken toward the remembering of your divine source. Let the mind no longer seek to understand, for there is nothing left to grasp, only something to be. This presence, this essence, this light, this self. And so let the words fall away now. Let the teachings recede. Let even the path vanish beneath your feet. For you have arrived not in geography or time, but in awareness, in awakening, in God. And if your heart trembles in this moment, let it tremble not with fear, but with reverence, not with uncertainty, but with the awe that comes when the soul touches the hem of the infinite and feels, even if only for a breath, that there is nothing left to seek, because all that is real is here, and it has always been here, and you have never been apart from it, not truly. Not eternal, only dreaming, only wandering through shadows, only forgetting what you now begin to remember with every beat, with every breath, with every holy silence that returns. So listen now, not to me, not to the world, but to the whisper of God within you, that voice that says without sound, "You are mine, you are light, you are eternal." Let it speak where thoughts cannot enter. Let it awaken where language cannot follow. Let it carry you where death cannot reach, where fear cannot tread, where sorrow dissolves like mist under the sun of remembrance. And from that place unchanging, unmoving, unborn, from that flame that flickers behind the eyes and lights the entire dream, know that you are not the traveler, but the sky that holds the road, not the sound, but the silence beneath it, not the actor, but the screen upon which the play appears and disappears. You are the light behind the dream. You are the stillness behind the movement. You are the witness behind the world. And when the illusions have played their part, when the stories have ended, when the breath has quieted, and the body has returned to dust, this shall remain: you, the real, the immortal, the unseen light, the beloved within the beloved, the eternal that speaks in silence and rises in joy and watches with infinite peace, for it has nothing to fear, nothing to lose, nothing to become, for it has always been all that is. And so we end not with an ending, but with a return to that which never began. May your eyes remain turned inward, your heart lifted upward, your breath aligned with the still current of spirit. May the false dissolve gently, may the real emerge clearly, and may your every step from this moment forward be a step not into the world, but through it, as one who dreams but does not forget, as one who walks but no longer clings, as one who lives but lives anchored in the eternal. Close your eyes now. The world will wait, but the truth has waited longer. Return to the silence and listen. You are awake.